Welcome, everybody, to the Dr. Leadership Lounge, where we have conversations with business leaders from all walks of life about how and why they are successful. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Dr. Leadership Podcast. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Hey, today, I've been excited before, but I am really, really excited today on the Leadership Lounge to bring somebody in that I think everybody ought to spend some time getting to know better. Lots of vehicles in which to do that. We're going to cover it. We're going to talk about all the great things he's done and all the great things he's doing. But today I want to welcome Paul Epstein to the show. Paul is a former NFL and NBA executive, award-winning speaker, not once, but 2 times best-selling author, host of the Win Monday podcast, and so much more that we'll get to. Hey, welcome to the show, Paul. How you doing?
I'm great, Brent. Fired up to be here.
Excellent answer. Thank you. So when we were kind of putting this thing together to talk, I was working with your firm, your PR firm, and I saw the Wolverine thing, and I'm a Big Tenner, so welcome to
Go Blue.
Welcome. That's right, go Blue, and a great year. You had a fantastic football season, and now are you lonely being Big Blue out there in L.A.? Are there a lot of Blue fans?
Fun fact. So I actually did my executive MBA at Michigan, but it was a Los Angeles cohort. And what I learned about that, so obviously you go back to Ann Arbor and the mothership for the beginning, the middle, the end. But what I learned through that process was the reason why they put up the tent poles here in LA outside of Michigan and greater Detroit, and obviously that Ann Arbor hub.
Yep.
The second most Wolverines are in Los Angeles. So this is the 2.0.
The 2.0. That's awesome. Awesome. A little bit better climate too, come around, January, February timeframe, right?
Well, yeah, we always joke that they never sent us back to Ann Arbor in the winter. So the way that they recruit you, and it's kind of like those movies where when you're the high school recruit and they're trying to get you into the college.
Yep.
And so the cheerleaders and the this and the that, and then you say yes, and then you show up for your first day and you're like, where'd the cheerleaders go? so they don't send you back whenever it's cold. So they recruited us in by sending us in those 4 months with pristine weather. It was either spring or fall, and we lived with that.
That's great. Speaking of cheerleaders, I have one moment of fame. She doesn't know it, but I claim it. Talking about cheerleaders in L.A. So years ago, 1994, I think, I was out in Palm Springs at an event for performance, and the manufacturer that we were out there for, it was an annual meeting type deal, had brought in all the L.A. Laker cheerleaders, and Paula Abdul was the cart girl on my golf course that day. That's my claim of fame. That's all. Opposites attract.
You can just ride off into the sunset.
Exactly. I'm done. I mean, I peaked early. There's no doubt. So, hey, again, thanks for coming on. And, we got a lot to talk about here because you've got these 2 wonderful books. They tie together great. You've got this, Momentum Monday, Win Monday brand that you're working on, and then really focusing on winning and driving momentum throughout the week and using Monday as a springboard. And that's really going to resonate with the audience. But one thing I always try to tie in on the Leadership Lounge is just, how'd you get here? How did Paul get to L.A., sunny L.A., having been an NFL executive, an NBA executive? Heck, we're going to talk about it at some point. Helped not build physically, but was involved in the 49ers organization during the new stadium being built in Santa Clara. How'd you get here? What was that journey like?
Long and windy road, my friend, but here is the fast pass. So grab some popcorn and buckle up. This is the fast pass through the journey. So even though we talked about Michigan, that was my postgrad, my undergrad was USC. And nowadays, as we're recording this here, 2024, sports business and sports business management are very common. Like you go to a lot of universities and it's the business side of sports is very well known. And at that time, which we're talking decades ago, it was not well known. It was kind of this hidden secret. So yes, you can be a sports fan. Yes, you can be obsessed with sports and are but you never think that it can become a day job. And so
Yeah.
what happens is I graduate from USC, my business degree, sales and marketing emphasis. So I'm working for a Fortune 10 straight out of school,
Great.
outside territory sales manager. And I was driving a very sporty Dodge Caravan. So imagine me in this cool minivan,
You
and
made it
here I
cool.
am cruising. Oh, I made it work. From retail to wholesale accounts, just cruising around. And for those that may or may not be sports fans, there's a big name in the college football draft space and NFL draft space, Mel Kiper. He
Yep.
starts studying kids from junior high to high school, and then he projects how well they're going to do in the pros. So if you're a sports fan, you're a football fan, you know who Mel Kiper is. And he is fired up. Like if you think I have energy, this guy is like on steroids, like
Sugar
10x
high all
whatever
day
I
long.
am.
That's right. Sugar high
Oh,
all day long.
for
No crash.
sure.
No crash.
No crash. He does not crash. So Mel comes on. Of course, I've got ESPN radio on the dial. And the first commercial, have you ever wanted to work in sports? Have you ever dreamed of working for your favorite NFL, NBA? And I'm speeding down the
Are
highway.
you screaming
Yes,
back?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Oh my God! Of course I am.
Yeah.
Of course, and yeah, I don't know if this conversation is being recorded, but I won't even tell you what the speed limit was and how fast I was going. But Mel got me really fired up, and so
Awesome.
the call to action was call 1-800 SMWW now. SMWW stood for Sports Management Worldwide. I made the phone call, and the rest is
The
history.
rest is
What
history.
happens is I go into an 8-week online course, sports business management. The deal was if you impress the professors, they'll open up their Rolodex. So it was a deal. I made the investment. And after 8 weeks, thankfully, I made a positive impression. They said, Paul, where do you want to be? I said, LA. I'm born and raised. I'd love to stay here. They
Mhm.
said, great. We know some folks at the Staples Center. So here I am. And this is at the time of the Kobe and Shaq Lakers. So I'm like, oh my
Man.
gosh, this is Kobe. This is Shaq. This is Jack and the Laker girls. Like
I'm
speaking
about
of
to be the
Paul
man
Abdul,
in the min. Yeah. That's awesome.
dude, I was in, right? Well, I never worked for the Lakers. They said we know the folks at the Clippers, and man,
Oh,
I was
swing and a
in.
miss.
Oh, for sure. So I'm an entry level sales guy. A year before I start, ESPN called us the worst brand in sports, and then week 2 on the job, Sports Illustrated says front cover of Sports Illustrated, worst franchise in
Oh,
sports history.
welcome to the team.
Try selling that. And that was my introduction, Brent. Like when I say I've walked through fires, like there's no BS in that statement. Like I have been through, it ended up being a 15-year journey after selling and doing well and breaking some records and selling the unsellable the way I just described it. Eventually you go from player to coach. So now you're managing the department. And then
Yep.
what that does, I go from LA to New Orleans to Sacramento, always in sales leadership,
Okay.
always in the NBA. Then I go out to New York and I work for an agency that's co-owned by the Yankees and Cowboys. So it's an agency owned by the Jones family and Steinbrenner family. And that
Wow.
lands me in the NFL league office. First time the Super Bowl had ever been in New York. And I was leading a national sales campaign with a group of 50 people spread throughout the country to do the unthinkable. 400% expectation versus the prior year's Super Bowl revenue goals. And we shattered it.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
absolutely crushed. And so, when you accomplish what they believe was not possible, and especially when it's a quantitative thing like revenue, you turn a lot of heads. And so what happens is you get invited to parties that you otherwise wouldn't have got invited into. So the
You're in.
49ers,
Yeah.
you're in, right? And especially again, like the way to give a quick 30-second masterclass on how these new NFL or sports venues get built, because you see in the news, $1 billion, $2 billion
Oh,
in
yeah.
LA, SoFi Stadium, $5 billion.
And it's not all through
Who
bonds. People
pays
aren't
for
going to, yeah,
that?
that's right. It's
Yeah,
not all through bonds. That's right.
exactly right. So basically, there's massive loans out there. There's a lot of debt and capital expectations. And so what happens is you pre-sell all of the inventory that's inside of the building to pay off the loan. So
Yep.
it's contractually obligated income. So they say, we're not just going to sell you a seat for a game. You have a 30-year contract on seats 1 and 2 in section 201. And like, that's
Wow.
how it works. And so that's what I became known for. And so when the Niners go from their old venue to the new venue in Levi Stadium,
Start all
they
over.
said, Paul, we
Yeah.
hear what you did at the league office. And that's the phone call. And that ends up being 5 years at the Niners, best stop of my entire sports experience. And I'm sure we'll talk about this at some point, but I would still be in the sports industry if it wasn't for a retreat that I attended as the head of revenue for the San Francisco 49ers, and it changed my life. I
That's
went
awesome.
to a 2-day offsite retreat. I found myself at that retreat, and I've never been the same since.
Wow. When someone can point to an event, like a specific event, like the boom, it's almost like the Big Bang. It started from
Mm-hmm.
nothing and then it was everything. Um, talk a little. You said, I'm sure we're going to talk about this. Talk a little bit about that. What resonated at that retreat that caused a life change? I'm sure you were killing it from an income standpoint. You were young.
Sure.
I mean, you were in your 30s probably at this point, killing it. What what was the resonating factor that made you just go, screw the sure thing here that's really humming. I'm going to go do this. What was it?
Yeah, and I really tap into the lives of everybody that's listening into this right now because there's probably no shortage of success. There's no shortage of achievement.
Yep.
There's probably a lot of trophies and accolades listening in right now. Me too.
Yep.
Where I was in my career, I checked all of those boxes. And sometimes when you're winning and you're succeeding and the world says bravo and your LinkedIn profile looks sexier and sexier by the month and by the year, you feel like nothing's broken and there's nothing to fix. And why would you ever change your environment? Why would you ever change your circumstance? And at a certain point, you also start to taste a little bit of your own success. And then a lot of dangers can fall into that.
Mm-hmm. There
But
you go.
why this retreat was so impactful for me was it was the first time ever in my life, not just in my career, but in my life, that I did self discovery work. The intention of the retreat was find your why, unearth your core values, and it could have stopped there. But I got so obsessed with these things that I felt like I finally found my North Star. But I also knew that if I leave them as distant North Stars, it's going to have no change, transformation, permanent effects on my life. So I got obsessed on what do I do with them on Monday morning? This is the origin story of now I say Win Monday. Now I say Monday Momentum. It's because before I ever used those words, my life changed after this retreat because of my commitments, my decisions, and my actions the following Monday. From that retreat, I get back in the league office, or excuse me, back at the 49ers front office, and I'm preaching all about this retreat. I just felt like there was a different juice and a different energy and a different fuel and a different type of oxygen. Like it felt different.
It was big
So I'm
change. Yeah.
preaching about it.
Yep.
Yeah. And one by one, people on my team came up to me and said, I want some of that. So then some of the water cooler buzz starts. And then some of the football coaches came up to me. Then some of the players came up to me. Then HR approaches me and says, what do you think of coaching the why to our onboarding employees? And that's how I became known as the why
Why coach?
coach
I saw that.
of the
That's
San
very cool.
Francisco 49ers. That's the backstory, Brent. And so now I just feel like, and that was the greatest graduation of my life. No offense to USC or Michigan, but
Totally
that
get
was
it.
the greatest graduation of my life from career to calling. I felt called to pay this gift of purpose forward. And I've been on a mission ever since to do that.
That's outstanding. And gosh, I cannot remember her name right now. She was the former CEO of PepsiCo. She was an Indian lady. And her big thing was you can't have performance without purpose. And you found your purpose, right? I mean, there's been a bunch of books and a bunch of things around this, but inner reflection is
Yep.
where big change starts from, right? I didn't have an exactly similar event to that, other than I knew I wanted to be a coach, right? I mean, that's how I got in leadership 30 years ago from being a direct seller. Is I thought, man, I really wouldn't do it that way, and I was inspired in kind of a different direction. But man, once I latched on, could have made a lot more money as an individual contributor. Could have, the accolades were coming, like you said. I was out of shelf space for the trophies and the trip wins and that kind of stuff. But it's like, man, there's got to be something more. And I mean, that had to be like a kaboom moment where you just walked out and I just can't imagine how freeing it was from a mental standpoint.
That's the word. I love how you just said freeing. I never knew that I needed to become free, but I knew instantly when I felt free.
Isn't that
This
great?
retreat freed me. And it's because, to use a sports metaphor, the retreat was a timeout. And when you're busy building a career, and especially if it's going well, it was for me, and I'm sure it's going well for a lot of folks listening. And everyone's listening to this podcast because we want to get 1% better.
That's right.
It's not because we're broken. It's not because there's a million things to fix. It's like, no, I'm obsessed with getting 1% better every single day. And I have unreasonable ambition, and that's me, and that's probably you too. And so, because of all of these things, what I have learned is when you find yourself, like, I don't know where I would be or where my life would be without this retreat. It was a forced time out. It was forced reflection. And I feel so grateful and lucky to be in that room. Fast forward, maybe everybody's not in these types of retreats, but I think 2020 was another time where as soon as some of the early dust from the pandemic and shutdowns and quarantine started to settle in, there was a lot of inner reflection going on.
Oh
There was
yeah,
a
the
lot,
Great Resignation they called it. I mean, a lot of movement.
absolutely
Yeah, yeah.
a lot of movement, but like the point is we don't need something to happen in the world like a pandemic to check in with ourselves. So do we have intentional processes on that? And again, Win Monday and Monday Momentum, the reason why I talk about this emphasis and this spotlight on Monday is we all have busy and chaotic lives. We're all in a hamster wheel. We're all grinding. We're all hustling. If you have a family, that comes with its own layers. We've got bosses. We've got goals. We've got pressures. We've got expectations. So the default setting is that we just go into every day and every week, and it feels over time like a rinse repeat. And I know that unless we have disrupted patterns, we need to kind of hit the reset button every week. And so when we win Monday, now we have momentum to win Tuesday, Wednesday,
Wednesday, Thursday,
Thursday,
and on
and
it
we keep
goes.
rolling.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then guess what, Brent? The next week, it's the same opportunity. It's the same fork in the road. Even if you crushed it this week, you have to hit the reset button every Monday. Otherwise, we fall into this trap. As one of my executive coaches, she tells me, you can drift by default or you can operate by design. The choice is up to you. And Monday is where I make that decision to say, this is about design. This is not about drifting on default.
That's awesome. Great, just incredible feedback on that because I think everyone has what they think they want to do, right? You go into school
Yeah.
and you think I'm going to be some specific, always work out that way. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a dentist. And then there's us that are, history majors or marketing or communication. And you want to do something with people, but you haven't found it or you don't know for sure what it is. And you go out into the world. I mean, you talked about your fancy caravan listening to the radio. I traded in an IROC Z28 so I could buy a Chevy Astro van to deliver my own copiers. I was a door-to-door copier salesman. So
Oh, man.
not a lot of guys can make that look sexy, and that includes me. That
You
includes
figured
me.
it out.
No, I did not. But try picking up the girls with the middle seat out so you could use the coroner's cart to roll in and out your copiers to put on dough. So same type of thing. Cut your teeth. And I really thought, okay, I'm going to pad my resume, right, and then go find what my next thing is. And you had progressed through and found this great ability to sell and find connection with people and get behind causes and those types of things. And then all of a sudden, just that quick, you're sitting there and somebody says something and you self-reflect. So I've been in leadership for 29 years, and I really find myself describing what I do as I am a psychologist by experience, not by education. And
Mm.
it is helping people. What this show was designed to do was to help enlighten people on, first of all, here's a terrible mistake I made. I would suggest not doing it. Here's an opportunity that I was told about that I would have never thought of if I wasn't listening and paying attention to others. Just trying to share, pay it forward type deal. And we talk a lot about leaning in. Once you find that, or once you determine this is what I want to do, then it's all about leaning in. And going 100% at it, because otherwise it's just another retreat that it could have been, and it was for 99% of the people that went there, a check the box, put the booklets and the forms that they gave you on the shelf, and in 3 years I'll throw it out because there's no more room on the shelf because I went to last week's retreat. And you did something with it. And that's just absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome story.
Yeah,
So,
and I think the big call out for everyone listening in is it's not always going to be a retreat. It could be a book, it could be a podcast, it could be a happy hour conversation, it could be anything that's just something that happens to you. And I think the number one piece that I want to impress upon people is don't ignore the signs.
yeah,
Don't ignore the cues.
the
Don't
gut.
ignore the signals.
Yep.
Like when you're feeling, I've gone to awesome events before this retreat, but maybe it wasn't the right day. It wasn't the right time. I wasn't ready to act on it. Like I didn't feel compelled. But this feeling, I could have done nothing with it and it would have become a sugar high, but I felt like, man, this is special. And so when you have something that feels like, okay, this is a little different, please don't ignore that. Too many people just go back to the busyness of life. And it's like adding that intentionality to calm the mind and really just say, why is this resonating with me so deeply? And sit in that feeling and make one decision and one action, baby step to say, let me scratch the itch based on this cue, based on this signal. That would be a piece of advice.
That's awesome advice too. So you talk about it. It might be a retreat. It might be a cocktail event or something.
Sure.
Do you happen to know who Stan Phelps is? And I didn't talk to you about this
I know the name, but don't know
Okay.
him personally.
Okay, so Stan Phelps is an executive coach and a person that we've used inside my organization a couple times, and we've become good friends. He has the Goldfish series and a number of books and things, and different than what you do by a long ways, but is in that he was similar to you. You were in an agency inside of professional sports. He worked for Adidas and ran their tennis operations in Europe, and had come back and was doing some things inside then with a large agency, athlete rep agency, and he was out on a rooftop, and I don't even remember where it was. I don't know if it might have been New York, having a cocktail, and there was a guy alone waiting, and he just struck up a conversation. This guy inspired him with just 5 minutes of by the way conversation to go, I'm not going to do this anymore. And that resonated with him at that moment. Just very, very interesting how people can take advantage of these signals, or they can simply let it pass, and maybe they missed out on something big, maybe they didn't. They'll never know because they didn't try. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? I mean, there's just no doubt not. So you created this new I don't want to say persona, but this new passion, and so you got two best-selling books out there. The first is The Power of Playing Offense, which I think is just an absolute awesome title. And I know it was the first, and you really say the second one, Better Decisions Faster, is kind of a 2.0, and accolades. So just so the listeners know, to the Dr. Leadership audience out here, Eric Yuan, who's the founder and CEO of Zoom Communications, gives a great reference on the power of playing offense. He says, what makes a great leader? Mountains of books have been written on the traits, skills, and qualities that provide this answer. In my mind, one easily rises to the top, the power of playing offense. That's a pretty good recommendation. And then on book 2, Better Decisions Faster, and my wife was very excited about this because she's a huge Mel fan. But Paul has created the ultimate guide to confidence and courage, one decision at a time. Mel Robbins, she's got more books out than the library, so she's a very inspirational person that I listen to whether I want to or not every weekend around the house. It's typically playing. But so tell us a little bit about the power of playing offense. It ties in with this momentum thing, right? You did a study and you found that well, I'll let you tell the story, but what brought around the book The Power of Playing Offense?
The power of playing offense. And actually, this is before I get to the why of the book,
Yeah.
which actually I could just lead with that. It's the leadership playbook I never had. So I'm going to come back to that in just a second.
You betcha.
But when we want to talk about signals and signs and cues and not ignoring it, I'm not just here to motivate and inspire and say these words of positivity and hope and belief and optimism. I'm actually like a prove it guy. Like I'm a show me kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
So when the worst professional thing that happened in my life which was, you burn the boats, you go all in on speaking after this long, illustrious sports career, and then bang, March of 2020 hits, and your entire professional livelihood is
Gets shut
taken away
down.
from you.
Right.
Like the industry shut down. This wasn't like, hey, Paul, just hang in there. Hey, Paul, just no, dude, no speeches are happening. Like it was just a thing, right?
Who are you going to
And
speak to?
so,
There's nobody in the room. Yeah.
yeah, hey, I need human gathering and events to do a business,
And
and
you're in
like there wasn't a
California.
lot of that. Yeah, I know. Florida came a calling, right? But needless to say, so my whole drawback here is, all right, March in 2020, you get kicked in the what. I started writing The Power of Playing Offense in April, and by the end of June, it was done. It's a
Wow.
300 plus page book. Now, look, there's a lot of design and all that, but still, I wrote my first book, the whole freaking book, in 90 days. So just to show you, like, and versus my second book, I actually knew what I was doing, and it took me over a year and a half
That's right.
because now you're back on planes, trains, and automobiles. Point being, what a blessing in one of the worst professional chapters and like this circumstance that I had no control over. I could have been a victim. In my case, I wrote a book.
That's
And
awesome.
like you said, you get the Eric Yuans and the CEO of Zoom, who's a client of mine, and he backs it. And all of a sudden, bam, rocket ship. And now when the world opens up, you're getting flown all over the world to talk about playing offense. But it happened during one of the bigger storms that I'll probably ever experience. And a lot of us have those situations. And so I just wanted to
yeah.
share that
No,
real quick, the background.
it's a great background because I talk about in the darkness look for stars, in the
There
storm
you go.
in the storm look
There
for
you go.
in the storm look for rainbows, right? I mean, in the rain look for rainbows. It's all about your attitude. Where some see a hurdle, others see opportunities, and
Yep.
it's all comes down to decision and self motivation. I mean, this isn't hard. It really is. I shouldn't say that. It can either be hard now or hard later. You can either put in the work, and my wife says that all the time, and do hard better, right? A great female basketball coach
Yep.
out of Maryland has great things around that. But if people would just take what they think is their ambition towards something and really focus it, the success rate is real high when people are all in. It's unfortunate people won't go all in.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
doubt.
So
Yep. So the leadership playbook I never had. So
yeah.
the analogy here is in sports, just because you're a great player doesn't mean you're destined to be a great coach.
Oh,
We all get that. Like nobody would say, oh, you scored 30 points in a basketball game. Sure, go coach a team. But in business, that's the default.
it fails
Oh,
more
you're
than
the
succeeds. It
oh
fails
my
more than
gosh,
succeeds.
heck yeah, heck yeah. So you're the best accountant. Now you supervise the accountants. Well, that's a different job. It's a different
And
thing.
they haven't
It,
given you
it
any of the skills or the tools along the way to jump into that.
don't get me started
But
on
they're
that.
scoring
Yeah.
you. They're scoring you the day one. You
Yeah,
know.
here's a scary stat. 60% of managers and above in corporate America at Fortune 1000 companies have never received a single day of leadership development training. Oh,
Just
okay.
asinine.
Problem,
Yeah.
massive
Big
problem.
problem. Yep.
So instead of complaining about the problem, I wrote a book to the solution. And that was the book that I wish I had when they said, you're an awesome seller. Now manage the sellers. And I said, great, where's the playbook? And they looked at me funny and said, good luck.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, there's got to be a better way. But again, you just get back in your grind. And then a decade later, now I'm a thought leader and I'm an author. And so I wrote the book that I wish I had back then when I became the sales manager at the LA Clippers. So then after it became a bestseller and I'm speaking all over the globe post COVID about the power of playing offense, I always got approached in private, in public, or even on podcasts like this. Paul, break it down for me. What's the number one thing that people, teams, and organizations that play offense do differently from those that play defense? And so instead of just blurting out answers
First
about
thing
my
off the top of your head.
thoughts,
Yeah.
yeah, I certainly had opinions, but I said, you know what? I'm really intrigued by this question. And like, I really want to know the answer and do it in a more formulaic way versus just my opinion. So consulting notes, training workshop notes, executive coaching notes that I'd been through. We transcribed years of podcast conversations and we distilled key themes and traits and qualities and characteristics. What do people that play offense do differently than those that play defense? And Brent, here's where we landed. There was, in fact, a silver bullet separator. And it is people that play offense versus defense. Offensive people are highly decisive. Decisiveness is the separator. They don't freeze, they don't get stuck, they don't get paralyzed, they don't need all the information. They prioritize action over outcome. They embrace imperfect action as their ally because to defensive people, the fork in the road is I succeed or I fail.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
offensive people, the fork in the road is I succeed or I learn.
That's right.
I succeed or I grow. And knowing that decisiveness is the separator, well, then let's not just make decisions, let's make them better and faster. And that's why I wrote Better Decisions
That's what
Faster.
led to the
So
second one. Yeah.
that's it. Clarity, peace of mind, and confidence at your most critical forks in the road of business and life. That's Better Decisions Faster. And also, my last piece on the book is Captain Obvious once said, you should make better decisions faster. Okay.
Yeah.
I am not here to say, hey, listeners, make better decisions faster. Yes, Captain Obvious could say that. I wrote the book, How? The $1 million question is not, oh, should I make better decisions faster? That's a hell yes. The $1 million question is, how? What's your decision making process? What's the framework? And that's the insides of the book. It's very much about the tactical process and system that I call the head, heart, hands equation. And that's how we make better decisions faster.
Got you. So talk a little, extrapolate that out a little bit further, that head, heart, hands piece. And
Yeah.
I know it kind of goes into, I think confidence is a real big thing inside your approach here as well. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, anything in life, and you resonate with one thing, one comment. I try to tell people never let great get in the way of good. And it's kind of what you're
Mm-hmm.
saying is the reason there's a halftime in major sporting events is for adjustments, right?
Yep.
Rest and those types of things. But you can come with the greatest offensive plan, the 25 first scripted plays, etc. And sometimes it ain't working. And you have to make adjustments at halftime. Those are great leaders because they know it's okay, I'll adjust. They don't
Yep.
feel that it's feast or famine, that it's one and done, whatever analogy you want to insert there. But go a little bit further around the head, hands, heart, heads,
Happy
heart,
to.
hands.
Happy
Excuse me.
to. So here's the internal framework for how we can all make better decisions faster. Head, heart, hands.
Mm-hmm.
Head is your mindset. Heart is your authenticity. Hands are action. So head, mindset, heart, authenticity, hands, action. The equation is head plus heart equals hands. In other words, when deciding whether to use your hands, whether to take action, there's two checkpoints, head and heart. Head, do I think it's a good idea? Heart, do I
Feel.
feel it's a good idea? And just like when you're driving a car, you pull up to an intersection, you know exactly what to do. Green is go, red is stop, yellow is assess. And that's how the equation works. When your head and your heart are on board, it's a green light. 10 out of 10 times, take that action, use your hands. The opposite, no head, no heart, red light. Don't do it or stop doing it. And then yellow is the messy middle. That's when either your head or your heart is on board and you
Conflicting.
got to
Yeah.
solve.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to solve for the gaps. So the why underneath the book is I believe that we all deserve an abundance of green lights. And this helps you gravitate toward intentionally building and surrounding yourself with more green
Green lights.
lights.
Great
It's
deal.
also the awareness to stop running reds because subconsciously, when you think about, oh, I'm burned out, I'm stuck, I'm fatigued, I'm not happy, I'm not fulfilled. Nobody got there overnight. They've been running red lights without even knowing it. And then they ask themselves, how the heck did I get here? So now this equation says, hold on, hot stove, don't touch. That's a red light. And so now you stop running reds or you don't stay in reds for as long. And then lastly, Lord knows we need a playbook for how to conquer and navigate that messy middle of yellow. And that's why I wrote the book. More green, stop running reds. Here's the playbook for the messy middle of yellow.
And the performance goes up because you've elevated the speed at which you're going to market or going to whatever might be the case.
100%.
So that's the ROI on the damn thing is, hey, I might have gotten to that decision. Paralysis through analysis kills a lot of people. I've been dealing on a transaction. It's a large transaction, $20 million piece of business. but we've been going over this thing for 6 months, current engagement that we're already on, trying to convince them that we came to them, save them a bunch of money. Here's why we're not recommending some of these services that you've had in the past. We don't feel they're delivering value, true partnership type approach. And we have done meeting upon meeting upon meeting. Meanwhile, savings is flying out the back of the car because they simply can't see. It's all green lights here on this one. So sometimes we're our own worst enemies. We sit and we just overthink and overcomplicate when things can be a little more clear if you just take a breath and relax a little bit and go, that it feels right. I think it's right. I'm going with it. And again, change the tack of the ship if the winds change, but it doesn't matter because my CEO says fail forward. It's not a failure. You know, you're fail fast and fail forward. As long as you learned, as long as you progress, even when you do something that isn't right, you have learned because you know what not to do next time. So it's a gift that continues to give. Now, where can they find these books? I want to make sure that we get that out to the audience here. Where are they available and where can they find copies of this stuff?
There's a secret website called Amazon.
Wow. Tell me about it. I figured as
Yeah.
much, but I want you to be able to call it
No,
out.
no. This, thank you for asking. Of course, because hey, you publisher's website, all that. But I think in the spirit of Amazon Prime and getting this puppy in
Pretty
less
easy
than 48
stuff.
hours, pretty easy stuff. So the power of playing offense, and that's a great leadership playbook, leading self to leading others to leading into the future, and then Better Decisions Faster. Both are available on Amazon.
Now, on that Better Decisions Faster, you go into confidence quite a bit there, and about the importance of that. Talk a little bit about that. And I do want to let the audience know, Paul has a confidence quiz where you can score from, not a 0. I hope somebody has more than 0 confidence, but 0 to 100. And
we give you 1 point for getting the
your
name right. So
awesome.
That's why,
awesome.
Absolutely. One is the basement.
I'm in. I'm that kid in school in my first year of college, which wasn't good. The University of Iowa asked me to leave once, actually twice, but the second one was clerical error. The teacher announces the scores on the test are from 42 to 94. You're like, all right, I'm middle of the road, and unfortunately the 42 lands on your desk. That's a humbling experience. But I did get points for my name being right from Mrs. Wong. I still remember her name.
I love it.
It was a quantitative math class. But so confidence, I'm a big believer in confidence. We did a show here, guys, just probably 6 or 8 episodes ago now on the importance of confidence in negotiating skills because from a position of confidence, it elevates your opportunities to move the needle closer to your side of wants and needs than the I don't want to say opposition because that makes it sound aggressive, but utilizing confidence positions you well for those types of things. Tell us about confidence inside the book.
I believe that confidence is the greatest currency that we have. And I've gone through 2 chapters of my life, pre-confidence and post-confidence. And the pre wasn't that I lacked it, it was inconsistent. So maybe that resonates with a lot of folks where, hey, I feel confident in this moment, but then the next day there's a doubt, there's fear, there's self-limiting beliefs. We're human, right? Like that stuff's all very natural.
Yep.
But if confidence is currency and if confidence can become our competitive advantage, inside of the book, I unpack how, but you can also think of confidence as this game of inches. And the game of inches is every single moment, every single decision, every single action, I have an opportunity to show up with more confidence. Well, the opposite of that is when we just stay on the sidelines. In decision making, what I have found through all the research that went into Better Decisions Faster, and Brent, this will be no surprise, the worst possible decision of them all is indecision.
Oh.
Indecision is a silent killer, and what the research says is 85% of people suffer from indecision, and it's negatively impacting the quality of their life. They just don't even make the decision. They stay on the sidelines. So part of this framework of head, hard hands, and green, yellow, red, it doesn't always get you to the finish line, but within seconds, right now, like everybody listening to this, what is a decision you're facing that maybe you've been putting off? You're struggling with it. It's a challenge. You don't know what to do. Filter it through the head, heart, hands equation, and literally within seconds, you're going to land on a green, yellow, and red. So when you have a framework to overcome the silent killer of indecision, you start to get more confidence, and you start for decision-making to become a muscle. And we all know that whatever we consistently flex, it grows. And so that's why I'm such a massive believer in the difference between me having inconsistent confidence versus now, brother, we're locked in.
Yep.
We are locked in. I don't have bad days where I'm lacking confidence because I know who I am. I know my values thanks to that retreat that I mentioned. So that's a lot of my heart. And now I can step into these decisions and say, okay, I'm not worried about the outcome or the consequence. I'm just going to say, is this a green, yellow, or red? And now I'm informed on what my next move should be. And if I can do that every single day of my life, I show up with unshakable confidence because I can continue to swing the bat and make decisions and not get paralyzed and not be indecisive. And I bet on myself that I succeed or I learn, I succeed or I grow. That's why I created the confidence quiz. That's why I wrote Better Decisions Faster.
That's awesome. And just so all the listeners know, I'm going to have it in the notes on the episode, but you can go out, and Paul has agreed to offer the confidence quiz to all the listeners out there. I went out and took a look at it. Please go out and give yourself the go ahead to do this thing. It can be found at www.paulepsteinspeaks.com/confidence-quiz. And when you do this, it then unlocks a bunch of tools and a variety of different things that will help the individual improve that confidence, understand where their weak spots might be, blind spots, etc. I hope I'm doing that justice there. But for everybody, please go out and give that some time and see what the answer comes back and work on improving it. And one comment I wanted to make on your feedback there a minute ago around it is you kind of talked about the sideliners, right? The people that sit on the fence. And what comes to mind a lot of that is procrastination, right? They're just putting off something that has to be done, a decision has to be done. And procrastination is just an absolute killer. Again, it goes back to it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to not have it turn out the way you want as long as you're learning. And I always say to people, and it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, hey, I'm a procrastinator, and tomorrow I'll tell you why. There is no tomorrow in this decision-making. You got to make sure that you're acting today to propel your life forward, no matter what you want to be. If it's stay at home and be the best parent, if it's to be a better son, daughter, sibling, whatever it might be, you have to lean into these decisions, and then you have to make the go, no-go call on whatever you're evaluating in life, like Paul says. And if there's gaps, you need to address that. So how do you address gaps? What's your guidance around that? When you get the yellow light, what is your guidance there?
Absolutely. So I'll give a very quick masterclass on it. And
Yeah.
then for anything deeper, you're going to have to get the book.
Get the book. That's right. I don't want to lose all the sparkle for you.
No, it definitely, we're not going to lose the sparkle, but the reality is there is no single podcast conversation that is going to solve all of the yellow lights, because yellow lights are the messy middle. They are tricky. They are hard. And by the way, most of the decisions that paralyze us or freeze us or we get stuck on or we don't know what to do.
Yep.
When I ask this in keynotes, I say, okay, let's do an exercise. And I walk them through the head, heart, hands equation. And I say, choose a decision that you might be stuck with. And then after they process head, heart, hands, they land on green, yellow, red. I say, raise your hand if you landed in green. Raise your hand if you landed in red. Raise your hand if you landed in yellow. And Brent, 80+% of the audience yellow. So I get it. And that's why I wrote the book, because I'm like, look, green and red are about awareness. Yellows are hard. Here's a quick insight about yellows that will help a lot. There's good yellow and a bad yellow. The difference is a good yellow is good because it has the opportunity to eventually become a green.
Mm-hmm.
The bad yellow is the one that we know will never become a green. And that's even more deadly than a red, because at least a red, you snap your fingers and it's no moss.
It's in the past. It's gone. Right.
It's done. It's done. It was just a bad, and like, be done with it. But this yellow lingers for months or years. And that is a very, very deadly thing. So head versus heart. If one of the two is on board, which of the two do we believe has the greater opportunity to change over time? Like if I said, hey, Brent, let's lock ourselves in a room. I'm going to be your coach for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. You've got a self-limiting belief. You've got some pollution, some toxicity in the mind. Let's do some mindset work. Do we think that we can improve your mindset over time? Sure. I'm not saying it's easy, but it for sure is possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something where if our heart is on board and we've got a head gap, we can do the hard work to say, this has a chance to become a green. It's not a guarantee, but it has a chance because we can
Mm-hmm.
improve your mindset. But the opposite, are you going to wake up with a new heart tomorrow? Of
Problem.
course not.
Nope.
You're not. Your heart's not going to be any different about this job or this person or this place or this whatever. Your heart is your heart is your heart. Your truth is your truth is your truth. Your authenticity is your authenticity. So the bad yellow is when our head is in, our heart is out. That will never become a green. So
Wow.
heart is the starting point because if we don't start there, if
It's
your
never
heart is
going to
not
come out of
in,
it. It's
it's
not going
just
to come out.
never
Right.
going to become a green. And all of us want more green lights. I'll give a very quick example on this because I know we have a lot of leaders on the that are listening in. I had a yellow light problem in my past. When I was leading big sales teams, oftentimes, and this happens in sales environments, you got some high performers, some high producers, some high achievers, and they're great at selling widgets. But sometimes they're really difficult to manage. They're just tough people. And
Yep.
sometimes you throw them in a big locker room, like a big sales team, and they're not good for anybody
They're
else.
cancerous.
Attitude,
They're
energy,
cancerous.
yeah, like
Yeah,
it's
they are.
lone wolf. And
Yep.
like,
Yep.
but your head keeps them because of goals, because of pressure, because of expectations. Oh, we're about to go public. We're about to go.
Oh,
We're going
yeah.
to exit. We're going to. It's like, so you keep your top producers. Your head says keep them, but your heart knows they're not a keeper.
Revenue
But because
hides
of
sins. Yep.
business,
Yep. Revenue hides it.
absolutely,
Yep.
because of business and because of the rules of the game, I kept far too many yellow lights. And then TikTok, months or years go by. Now my locker room is polluted. I've
Yep.
got engagement problems. Then some of my best people left. So now I have retention problems. The marketplace became aware of it, and now I have recruiting problems. If I was advising and coaching and consulting the Paul of those years, I would say, Paul, you don't have an engagement problem or a retention problem or a recruiting problem. You have a yellow light problem.
Very interesting. I think that it's a great analogy, and I hope it's resonating with the listeners because it's resonating with me. We've all sat on that performer because, well, gosh, he's or she's doing 130% of plan every single year. I can count on that revenue. But what isn't going through your mind is the negative impacts that you touched on, the cancerous things inside the bullpen suddenly. It's holding 20% of performance out of the other 12 team members that far exceed the revenue that that person's bringing in because the detriment, the headwinds that they're creating inside your culture. You're never going to have good culture as long as you accept. Culture is defined by the least positive things you'll accept. If you allow that lone wolf or that negative Nancy or whatever you want to call them be a part of your team and allow that negative energy to build up over time, it's doing nothing but destroying everyone else in the room besides them. And sometimes band-aids hurt a little bit when you pull them off, but guess what? The healing starts better when you got air to that damn thing. So pull the band-aid off, allow the rest of the team to really reach their maximum potential, and move on. And I think that that's a great lesson out there. It's funny. I've just a quick story to tie back into this. So I had a manager for years who had a person that wasn't even, his heart was too in it and was too concerned about the person. We had a person that just had a performance problem and couldn't get him to move on this gentleman. I was the director. He was one of my senior managers, and we talk about it every quarter when we were getting together. I said, "Why haven't you done anything? Why haven't you done anything?" "Oh, he's doing better. He's gonna pull out of it this time." Always trying to make excuses on why he's there. He had a great year last year. It's just he'll pull out of this thing. And I asked him, his wife's name was Julie, and I said, "What's Julie think?" And he goes, "Julie think?" And I said, "Yeah, your wife does know that you're holding back your income potential because of this poison in your team, right? I mean, you've talked to Julie about you're allowing this person to stay on the team. What does Julie think about this?" And that was his aha moment. I turned it into all of the negatives that are being brought on by this person. I turned it into all the other things instead of he was just focusing on the worst thing in every leader's job is letting somebody go or telling them that it's not right, find them a different seat, whatever you want to say. And that finally got them over the hump. And that was a better decision faster, removing one of your three attributes, right? And just saying, man, you got to look at this differently. That really resonates with me, what you just said.
Yeah, no, that's a great example that you shined a light on as well. And frankly, Brent, when we talk about winning Monday and Monday momentum,
Yep.
there's infinite, and I could preach about these things from the mountaintops all day long. But I would say the number one thing that, especially in a non-public setting, when people are sending me the DMs or they're texting me or they're emailing me, like the private one-to-one stuff, the thank you, Paul, for X. The number one theme of the biggest problems that we're solving on how we not only win Monday, but create more momentum to win the week is I think we all suffer from a lot of yellow lights in our life.
Mm-hmm.
And so while we haven't had a label for it, I never called them yellow lights until Head, Heart, Hands was created and the book was written and all that. But I literally feel like when we can solve for our yellow light problems, our entire life starts to positively change. And so that's why you want to talk Monday momentum and why it's really blown up since we launched it at the time we're recording this less than 30 days ago. The earliest signs of impact have been thank you for helping me with my yellow lights. And that alone is the ROI. Like, because yellow lights are kind of the halo effect of all these things that are pain points and problems and challenges. It's typically drawing back to a yellow light.
So is that the new endeavor you're talking about? Is that your 360 community?
Yeah, exactly. Win Monday is the community, but Monday momentum, and I'll just put it out there. The website is winmonday.win. So it's
That's
pretty
awesome.
easy. Yeah, winmonday.win. That's where everybody can go. You sign up for Monday Momentum. It's free. It's just a gift from me to everybody that's listening in. It's a thank you for being a part of this conversation. But winmonday.win, sign up for Monday Momentum. And what it is, it's every Monday morning. It's a quick knock on the door of, hey, I know you're about to start a week, and I know that you're about to dive into the job, the career, the responsibilities, and all the things. And it's like, what's one thing that we can do today and this week to win? And sometimes it's a tactic, sometimes it's a tool, sometimes it's a strategy, sometimes it's a mindset shift, but we keep it bite-sized so that everybody can execute on it in a given week. And so that's the spirit of Monday Momentum.
Hey, it
It's for
primes the pump.
people.
Yeah, primes the
That's
pump
it.
every
It's
week.
it's
Right.
people like you and I, Brent. It's just people that want to get 1% better every day. But if we just default setting, go back to the hamster wheel, go back to the grind, go back to the hustle, we will not call the timeout on Monday morning on our own. So I just politely knock on the door and say, hey, it's Monday morning. Here's one thing we can focus on. Rinse, repeat 52 times a year. It's a 52-week action plan.
That's awesome. I'll tell you what, just listening to you, I can see why Success Magazine, called you one of the new top thought leaders out in the industry today, talking about motivational and executive coaching and such. It it's a resonating approach for sure. And you're exactly right. What I try to instill in the listeners, and why I was so happy to have you on here, is because I think our thought processes and our approaches are the same. It's just carry a positive attitude, a positive outlook. Always be a sponge in life, learning all the time. Don't be in your bubble on anything. Um, One thing that is happening for sure in the world is change, and it's speeding up. Right? It took us thousands of years to get the automobile invented. It took us thousands of years to invent the plane, and then only 60 years until we were landing on the moon. What took 260 years to fill the Library of Congress with data and information and images and speeches and everything, that amount of information moves on the internet every 90 seconds. So change is going to continue to speed up. And as individuals, we got to be willing to lean in to that change, or it's going to leave you in the dust. You can make a decision and not participate, and the rest is going to happen through that decision. You aren't going to be as successful. You aren't going to be on that team, whatever might be the case. You got to be able to take it on. And this Monday morning momentum that you're delivering, this 52-week motivational approach to it, I think is a winning combination. Just absolutely outstanding to share with the readers, or excuse me, with the listeners, and then also through reading your two books. If you were to, so you kind of mentioned it a few minutes ago, and I always ask this question kind of to finish up. We're getting ready to bump up on our time, and I want to be respectful again. Thank you so much for coming on. But you said something, talk about your younger Paul. Looking back now, if you could touch that 25 or 27-year-old that's getting ramped up, what would be your advice on the pitfalls to avoid, or the number one thing to lean into to make sure you kind of explode to the next level? What resonates with you there?
I think there's a mismatch between what society tells us we should be pursuing and going after, and it's largely this external scoreboard. What
Mm-hmm.
company did I work for? Was it a blue chip brand? How
Mm-hmm.
much money did I get paid? What's my title? And the reality is, I reflect back on my journey, and where the inner scoreboard was off is when I over index on winning those outer things.
Mm-hmm.
My inner scoreboard is my happiness, my fulfillment. Do I find purpose in not just the bigger picture, but in the day to day? Is there impact? Am I making a difference? Do I have the opportunity to leave people in places better than I found them? All of the things that now are the only scoreboard that I subscribe to. It's this inner scoreboard. If I could talk to my younger self, I would say that the key to winning that inner scoreboard of happiness, of joy, of fulfillment, of purpose, of impact, you almost have to ignore a lot of the outside noise that tells you what to pursue early in your career. And you have to hyper focus on the side that's going to bring all of the good things to life, which are people and leaders and culture. So if I could study, instead of this is what I majored in and these are the top 10 firms that do XYZ, instead of that vanilla approach that any career advisor could guide you toward, I would say that's fine if you want to start there, but don't pull triggers on that
Yeah.
analysis.
Yeah.
Pull triggers based on the people that are there, and not just the CEO. Not, I don't mean that, because the odds of you having exposure at those early
Very,
levels,
very, very low. Yep.
at
Yep.
best, you're going to see them at an
In
all
the
hands
hallway.
gathering.
Yeah.
Oh, great, great. That's not going to change your life. I
Right.
promise you that. No, it's actually getting a sense of the employee experience. It's actually doing a day in the life job shadow. It's actually spending time with the prospective boss that you may have, because we all know this. People quit bosses more than they quit jobs. And so if that's the case, and we've all had that crazy boss that bad, we've all had it. We've also hopefully have had some good, but we had some crazy in our life. That's for sure.
Yep.
That's just part of working. And so if that's going to be the secret sauce of what makes me, here's the litmus test. And I know people work from home now in some cases, but
Yep.
imagine we've all had a commute at one point in our career. We all have. What's that feeling you have when you're stuck in traffic on the way to work? What's that feeling you have as you're driving home after a long, exhausting day? And that's the truth serum. That's how you really feel about the job.
That's how
It's
you
not about the
judge if it's the
money.
right or not. That's right. That's right.
That's it. And so, like, I would talk to the younger Paul in his 20s, and for anybody else that's out there, like, you need to be so obsessed with the people that you're going to be around every day. Like, as far as that's the homework, because that's going to be the make or break on how you feel. And I just genuinely believe that, like, if you can be in an environment where you love the people that you do it with and for, that's the start. You can eventually say, I don't know about this industry. I don't know about this product.
Sure.
I don't know about this service. Cool. But like, you're not going to regret that experience. You know, Brent, actually, this is a really fascinating point. I started to work in some cultures that, to be polite, left something to be desired.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Like you always say in your journey, you can learn what to do or what not
Not
to
to
do.
do. Yeah.
I learned a whole lot of the second
Got the not
early
to
in
do
my
filled.
career. I was like, man, when I am leading this team, I
I'm
ain't going to
never
do it
gonna
like
do
this.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was where I was.
Yep.
But like, what a blessing, because then, kind of like the dating analogy, I got some of my bad dates out of the way. And then I realized, wow, that's not working. That's not working. So then eventually you're like, oh, this is what good is like.
Yeah.
And I think one of the downfalls, and look, you can't avoid this. There's no proactive way to avoid this. But sometimes I have seen some death traps when your first ever job it's a good culture, but you don't even know what a good culture is. But it's a good culture and they genuinely put people first. And then, but you get paid $10. And then across the street, they offer you 11 and you leave because 11 is bigger than 10. And then it's the entirely opposite people, leadership, and
It's
culture.
all crap.
And
Right.
oh my gosh. And there's so many sad stories because it's really hard to untangle that web because now you went from 10 to $11 to 12 to 13 to, but you're in toxic places. And now you say, well, there's a happy place over there, but they're $10 and you already built a lifestyle for $14 and now you're screwed. And so I think there's just this really interesting piece about like once you find good people to have the awareness that that's really the secret sauce before you enter the game of corporate America and work and all of this. Just obsess with the people you're going to work with and for, and that's a great
Yeah,
start.
and I think, man, what great leadership commentary there, because I struggle. So I'm older than you are. Uh, I struggle with the social media. I have to engage with it because of the podcast, right? I mean, to get guests and to get my message out and things like that. But you were talking about, people are doing it for the wrong reasons, the money, the car, the title, whatever. I call it fake book and insta scam. None of it's real, right? The authenticity isn't really there. People, they stand in front of the car that may be rented. It may be a prop. Maybe it is theirs, but their heart's empty. That they aren't truly enjoying it. We're dumbing down society by everyone wants to be an influencer. Well, what's that mean? Well, I want to try on really high end clothes and be paid millions of dollars. That's not how the world works. That's going to work for 1/10 of 1/100th of 1% of the people that go into that. If that's what you really want to be, great. But you got to find your authentic self internally. I love that. When you're sitting in traffic, what is it you really think about where you're going into work and what are you doing with your life? And life doesn't mean the end of the horizon. It could be the hood of the car. You could be looking really short horizon. And it isn't about money doesn't buy happiness. There's lots of studies on it. That isn't going to be what makes you better. To your point, if the people are good, the culture's good, you know that people are not out for just themselves. There's some team environment to it. I understand you don't make team mortgage payments. I understand that. But if you can find people that you truly love to work with, the pressures I take on leading an international organization here in the U.S. for a large division, it isn't my happy place every day on some of the things that I'm asked to do out of the Japanese headquarters, but it's the people. I keep showing up
Yeah.
because God, I just love them. I learn something every day, and I'm teaching somebody something every day or giving some sort of another way to do it attribute for them to consider. And
Yeah.
if you can constantly be kind of fired up about that and have some spark left in the engine, I think it's a win in the long game of careers. So, well, man, I'll tell you, it's been an impressive hour. It's flown by, and again, everybody, Paul Epstein, a couple of great books out on the market. Please check them out at that mystery website, Amazon.com. The Power of Playing Offense, and also Better Decisions Faster. And then really winmonday.win, www.winmonday.win, and get engaged. And then the final final URL to screen back out for the confidence quiz, www.paulepsteinspeaks.com/confidence-quiz. Releases a whole lot of tools for you that Paul has put together. It's been a complete joy, Paul. Everybody that's listening out there, we always end the show with one thing, and I think that Paul has definitely added ammunition to making yourself awesome. And Paul, I always say at the end of the show to all the listeners, remember this, you're awesome. Keep that shit up. Talk next week.